My mom was the type of woman everyone admired. She wasn't rich, she wasn't famous, and she wasn't even the kind of mom who was constantly baking pies or volunteering at every school event. But to me, she was strong. Strong in ways I never understood fully until I grew older. She worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table after my dad left. She was the one who never cried in front of me, even when I caught her staring blankly at the bills stacked on the kitchen counter. She was the person I believed could handle anything. And I mean anything. So when it happened, the night my entire world shifted, it felt like I had stepped into someone else's life. Because my mom wasn't supposed to collapse. She wasn't supposed to look weak. She wasn't supposed to scare me like that. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were our quiet nights. Mom would come home from her shift at the diner, drop her purse on the counter, and heat up leftovers. I'd be at the table, pretending to do homework but really scrolling on my phone. And then, like always, she'd ask about my day, and I'd give short answers, because that's what teenagers do when they think their parents are invincible and will always be there tomorrow. But that Tuesday was different. She came home later than usual, her uniform smelling like grease and coffee. I noticed right away that she looked off. Her face was pale, and she was holding her stomach like it hurt. "Mom, you okay?" I asked, half-heartedly because I didn't want to seem too worried. She forced a smile. "Just tired, sweetheart. Long shift. Don't worry about me." Those were her favorite words. Don't worry about me. But then, just as she set the food down on the table, her hand slipped from the plate. Her knees buckled. And before I could even process what was happening, she collapsed, right there, in the middle of our tiny kitchen. "Mom!" I screamed, dropping my phone as I rushed to her side. She wasn't responding. Her eyes fluttered, her lips pale. I grabbed her hand, shaking it desperately. My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. This couldn't be happening. Not to her. Not my mom. I called 911, my voice trembling as I told the operator that my mom wasn't waking up. The next few minutes were a blur, sirens, flashing lights, paramedics lifting her onto a stretcher. I remember clinging to the doorway, refusing to let go, until one of them told me to follow in the ambulance. At the hospital, time felt like it stopped. I sat in the waiting room, staring at the floor tiles, my hands still shaking. I tried calling my uncle, but he didn't pick up. I tried distracting myself with my phone, but I couldn't even read the words on the screen. Finally, a doctor came out. "She's stable now," he said. It was exhaustion and dehydration, compounded by stress. "She needs rest. But she's going to be okay." Relief washed over me so hard I nearly cried. I told myself I'd never take her strength for granted again. But later that night, when I went home alone because they kept her overnight for observation, I noticed something strange. Her purse had spilled when she collapsed. And in the mess of receipts, keys, and diner tips, there was something tucked deep at the bottom. A bundle of old envelopes, tied together with a faded ribbon. At first, I thought nothing of it. Just junk. But when I pulled them out, I froze. The top letter had my mom's name written in elegant handwriting I didn't recognize. And the return address wasn't anywhere near our town. It was from a place I'd never heard of. Curiosity burned in me. I shouldn't read them. They were hers. But the way they were hidden, buried deep in the bottom of her purse, told me these weren't just random letters. They were secrets. And for the first time in my life, I realized maybe my mom wasn't the person I thought she was. The strongest woman I knew had collapsed right in front of me. And now, sitting in her empty room, holding a stack of letters that looked older than me, I had a sinking feeling that the collapse wasn't the only thing that was about to change everything I believed about my family. Because when I opened the first letter, my hands trembling, the words inside made my heart stop. It wasn't just a letter. It was a confession. And it wasn't written to my mom. It was written by her. To someone I never knew existed. The letter shook in my hands as I read the first few lines. "Dear Michael, Not a day goes by that I don't think of you. I wonder if you're safe, if you're happy, if you've grown up to forgive me for what I did. I never wanted it this way. I stopped. My chest tightened as I reread those words, like somehow I'd missed something. Who was Michael? Why was my mom writing to him like he was someone she once hadn't lost? I flipped through the bundle, 10, maybe 12 letters, all tied together with the same ribbon. The handwriting was identical, all from my mom, and every single one was addressed to the same name, Michael. I sank onto her bed, my legs shaking. This wasn't possible. My mom wasn't the type of person to keep secrets like this. She worked double shifts, came home exhausted, and spent weekends paying bills and cleaning the house. She was too busy, too practical, too predictable. But these letters told a different story, a story she never shared with me. I started reading more. I know you must hate me. I hate myself too. But I had no choice. I was young, scared, and no one was there to help me. I can't undo what happened, but I hope someday you'll understand why I let you go. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. Let you go. Let you go. Did my mom have another child? I sat frozen, my hands trembling as the truth started forming in my mind. A brother? A half-brother? Someone out there who shared her blood but wasn't me? The thought twisted my stomach into knots. Why hadn't she told me? Why had she kept this hidden my whole life? I dug deeper, reading another letter. They told me it was for the best, that you'd have a better life without me. I believed them. I thought I was doing the right thing. But now, years later, the guilt is unbearable. I wonder if you even know I exist. If you even know my name. I dropped the letter onto the bed, clutching my chest. I could barely breathe. My mom, the strongest woman I knew, had been carrying this secret for decades. She had another child, someone she lost, someone she mourned silently all these years while raising me. And I never knew. I paced the room, my heart pounding. Suddenly, so many things started to make sense. The nights I'd heard her crying when she thought I was asleep. The way she always clung to me a little too tightly, like she was afraid of losing me. The strange sadness in her eyes every year on her birthday. It wasn't just exhaustion or stress. It was grief. A grief she never spoke of. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to scream at her for keeping something this huge from me. But all I felt was confusion and guilt. Guilt for all the times I brushed her off, for all the times I didn't ask what was really wrong. Suddenly, my phone buzzed, making me jump. It was the hospital. She's awake, the nurse said. You can come visit. I shoved the letters back into the purse, my mind spinning. I didn't know what I'd say to her. Should I confront her? Should I pretend I didn't know? By the time I got to her hospital room, my emotions were a tangled mess. She looked weak, lying there in the bed, and four in her arm. But when she saw me, she smiled, the same tired, reassuring smile she always gave me. Hey, sweetheart, she whispered. I'm okay. Don't look so worried. I forced a shaky smile, sitting down next to her. I wanted to hug her, but I also wanted to hold up the letters and demand the truth. Instead, I just said, You scared me. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice breaking. I didn't mean to. I stared at her, my throat dry. The words almost slipped out. Who's Michael? But I stopped myself. Not here. Not like this. That night, after she fell asleep, I stayed in the chair by her bed, my mind replaying everything I'd read. And for the first time, I looked at my mom not as the unshakable woman who raised me, but as a person. A person with flaws, mistakes, and secrets big enough to break a family apart. When I got home the next morning, I pulled out the letters again. This time, I noticed something I hadn't before. One of the envelopes wasn't sealed. Inside, along with the letter, there was a photograph. A boy. He couldn't have been older than 10 in the picture. Dark hair, brown eyes, a smile that felt strangely familiar. My heart skipped a beat as I stared at him. Michael. My brother. Somewhere out there, he existed. Somewhere out there, he was living a life that should have been part of mine. And suddenly, I knew I couldn't just let it go. I had to find him. Because if my mom couldn't face the truth, then maybe it was up to me. Maybe it was time someone did. The photograph haunted me. It wasn't just a picture of a boy, it was like looking into a part of myself I'd never known existed. The curve of his smile, the shape of his eyes, even the way his hair fell across his forehead. It all felt strangely familiar, like a reflection of something deep inside me. For hours, I stared at the photo, flipping it over in my hands, searching for clues. On the back, in my mom's handwriting, was a single date, June 2006. That was it. No last name. No address. Just a date and a name. Michael. I wanted answers, but every time I imagined asking my mom, I froze. How could I? How could I sit across from her, knowing she'd hidden something so big for so long, and demand the truth while she was still recovering in a hospital bed? But the longer I kept it inside, the heavier it became. The next day, while she slept, I pulled out my phone and searched for ways to track down people with just a first name and an approximate age. It felt ridiculous. How could I possibly find him without more? But I had to try. I searched social media first. Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok. Hundreds of Michaels popped up. Teenagers, adults, kids. None of them looked like the boy in the photograph. Frustrated, I almost gave up. Until I remembered something. My mom's sister, Aunt Clara, had always seemed distant from us. She lived a couple of towns over and rarely visited. Mom always brushed it off, saying they were different people who didn't get along. But what if that wasn't the full story? I decided to take a risk. That Saturday, I took the bus to Aunt Clara's house. My hands shook as I rang the bell. When she opened the door, her eyes widened in surprise. "Well, this is unexpected," she said, crossing her arms. "Your mom sent you?" "No," I said quickly. "She doesn't know I'm here." Her eyebrows lifted. "Then what's this about?" I hesitated, then pulled the photograph from my bag. "Do you know him?" For a moment, the color drained from her face. She reached out with trembling fingers, taking the photo like it burned her just to touch it. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "Mom's purse," I admitted. "Please, Aunt Clara. I need to know." "Who is he?" She looked away, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Your mother never wanted you involved." "Well, too late," I said, my voice cracking. "I already know. I know his name. Michael. Please, tell me the truth." Aunt Clara sighed heavily, sinking into a chair. For a long moment, she was silent, staring at the photo like it carried a lifetime of memories. Finally, she spoke. "Michael is your brother," she said softly. The words still hit me like a punch, even though I'd already guessed it. Hearing them out loud made it real. "Why didn't she ever tell me?" I asked, my throat tight. "Because," Aunt Clara said, her eyes dark with something like guilt, "your mom was only 17 when she had him. Our parents, your grandparents, they forced her to give him up for adoption. She didn't have a choice." My heart sank. Adoption. Forced. My mom. Just a teenager. It all made sense, and yet it didn't. "She's regretted it every single day since," Aunt Clara continued. "But she couldn't get him back. By the time she tried, it was too late. He already had another family. She decided it was better not to tell you. She didn't want you to feel like you weren't enough." Tears stung my eyes. "I don't feel like I'm not enough. I feel like she lied to me. My whole life." Aunt Clara reached for my hand, her voice gentle. "She was trying to protect you. And herself. It broke her, you know. That's why she works herself to death. Why she never remarried. She never stopped carrying him in her heart." I swallowed hard, my emotions a storm I couldn't control. Anger, sadness, confusion. But where is he now? Do you know? Aunt Clara hesitated. I've heard things. The family that adopted him moved a few towns over. I think he's still in the state. But that's all I know. It wasn't enough. I needed more. I left her house with my mind racing. The truth was heavy, but it was also a spark. For the first time, Michael wasn't just a name on a page. He was real. And maybe, just maybe, he wasn't too far away. That night, back home, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, imagining what he might look like now. Would he still have the same smile? Would he look like me? Did he even know I existed? The thought that he might not even know about me made my chest ache. By morning, I had made a decision. I was going to find him. I didn't care how long it took or what I had to do. I needed to see him, to talk to him, to know him. Because he wasn't just some secret my mom buried in her past. He was my brother. And I couldn't live the rest of my life pretending he didn't exist. The decision to find Michael consumed me. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was a need. A pull in my chest that wouldn't let me go. Every moment I spent at school felt pointless. Every conversation with friends felt shallow. How could I laugh at dumb memes or care about homework when somewhere out there, my brother existed, and I had no idea who he was? I started with what Aunt Clara told me. A few towns over. That wasn't much, but it was enough to narrow the search. I dove deep into social media again, typing in every variation of Michael, filtering by location, scrolling through endless faces. Most didn't match, but I couldn't stop. One night, after hours of searching, I found him. It was a picture of a boy about my age, standing with a group of friends at what looked like a football game. He had the same smile as the boy in the photo, only older. His hair was longer now, his jawline sharper, but the resemblance was undeniable. My heart raced as I clicked on his profile. His name was listed as Michael Reed. He lived in a town only 30 minutes away. His posts were public, pictures with friends, a dog, even some family photos. I stared at one of those photos for a long time. Michael stood with a couple who looked like his parents. They had their arms around him, smiling proudly. They looked happy, solid, like a family that hadn't been shattered by secrets. A lump formed in my throat. He already had parents. He already had a life. Who was I to show up and mess with that? But the more I scrolled, the more I noticed something. His captions. The jokes. Even the way he phrased things. It felt like I knew him already. Like we'd grown up side by side instead of apart. I wanted to message him right then and there. But what would I even say? Hi, you don't know me, but I'm your sibling. Surprise. No, I needed to be careful. I needed to be sure. The next weekend, I told my mom I was staying late at a friend's house. Instead, I took the bus to Michael's town. My heart pounded the entire ride, the photograph tucked safely in my backpack. When I got off, I pulled up his profile again. One of his posts mentioned the local skate park. I followed the map, my legs shaking with every step. And then I saw him. Michael. He was sitting on the edge of a ramp, laughing with a couple of friends. His voice carried across the park, and it was weird, so weird, how familiar it sounded, even though I'd never heard it before. I froze, my throat tight. For a moment, I thought about running, turning around, pretending I never came. But my feet wouldn't move. I couldn't look away. Finally, I gathered the courage to step closer. My voice barely worked when I called out, Michael? He turned, his eyebrows furrowed. Yeah. I swallowed hard, my palms sweaty. Up close, the resemblance was even stronger. His eyes were almost identical to mine. I think we might be related, I blurted. His friends laughed, but he raised a hand, telling them to chill. He studied me, his eyes narrowing. What do you mean, related? I pulled the photo from my backpack, my hands trembling. This. This is you, right? From when you were younger? He took the photo, staring at it for a long time. His face shifted, confusion, recognition, disbelief. Where did you get this? My mom? I whispered. She's your mom too. Silence. His friends exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable. Michael stared at me like I just set his world on fire. That's not funny, he said finally, his voice sharp. My mom is at home. She raised me. Don't come here with this crap. I'm not lying, I pleaded, tears stinging my eyes. She was forced to give you up. I only found out because she collapsed and I found her letters. She never stopped thinking about you. Please, you have to believe me. His jaw tightened, his hands shaking as he shoved the photo back at me. You're insane. Stay away from me. He grabbed his skateboard and stormed off, his friends following. I stood there, frozen, my chest caving in. The rejection hit harder than anything I'd ever felt. I thought finding him would fill the hole in my heart. I thought it would make everything make sense. But instead, I felt emptier than ever. The bus ride home blurred by in a haze of tears. By the time I walked through our front door, my mom was sitting at the table, pale but awake. Where have you been? She asked softly. I dropped the photo onto the table. Her eyes widened instantly. She didn't say a word, just stared at it like it was a ghost. You should have told me, I whispered, my voice breaking. I met him, Mom. I found Michael. And he hates me. Her face crumpled. She covered her mouth with her hand, tears spilling down her cheeks. Oh, sweetheart, she whispered, her voice shaking. I never wanted it to be like this. I slammed my hands on the table, anger boiling up. Then why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell him? Do you have any idea how messed up this is? He thinks I'm a liar. He doesn't even know you exist. She sobbed, clutching the photo to her chest. Because I was scared, she cried. I thought if I told you, you'd hate me. And if I told him, I'd ruin his life. He has a family. A real family. I didn't want to take that from him. Her words cut deep. A real family. Like what we had wasn't enough. For the first time in my life, I didn't see my mom as strong. I saw her as broken. And it terrified me. Because if she wasn't strong, then who was supposed to hold us together? That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed replaying everything. Michael's face when I told him the truth. The way he shoved the photo back at me like it burned his hands. The sound of my mom's sobs as she clutched it to her chest. I felt like I was trapped in the middle of two worlds that were never supposed to collide. One where I was the only child of a strong, hardworking mother who carried all the weight on her own. And another where I wasn't alone at all. I had a brother. A brother who wanted nothing to do with me. The next morning, I found Mom sitting at the kitchen table, the letters spread out in front of her. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her, like the weight of her past had finally crushed her. Sweetheart, she said softly, her voice raw. I need to explain. I sat down across from her, my arms crossed, my chest heavy. Then explain. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling as she picked up the first letter. When I was 17, I made a mistake. I trusted someone who promised they loved me. I got pregnant. When I told my parents, they weren't supportive like I hoped. They said I was ruining my life, ruining the family's reputation. They made me give him up. They told me I was too young, too poor, too weak to raise a baby. Her voice cracked. But I loved him. I loved him more than anything. And when they took him from me, it was like they ripped out a piece of my soul. I wanted to fight, but I didn't know how. I was scared. And when I finally built up the courage to try years later, it was too late. He already had another family. A good family. I couldn't take that away from him. Tears blurred my vision. So you just pretended he didn't exist? You let me grow up not knowing I had a brother? I wasn't pretending, she said quickly, shaking her head. I thought about him every single day. I wrote those letters because it was the only way I could keep him with me, even if he never read them. And when I had you, you saved me. You gave me a reason to keep going. I didn't want you to feel like you were living in his shadow. You were my second chance. My miracle. That's why I kept it from you. Her words pierced through my anger, but the ache in my chest remained. You don't get it, Mom. I met him. I found him. And he hates me. He thinks I'm some random crazy person. He doesn't even know you're his mom. He doesn't know any of it. She covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Oh God, I never wanted it to be like this. For a long time, we sat in silence, the letters scattered between us. Then, for the first time, I saw something shift in her eyes. A spark of determination, the same determination that had kept her alive through years of working, struggling, and raising me alone. I can't hide anymore, she whispered. I've been living in fear for too long. If he hates me, then so be it. But he deserves the truth. And so do you. The following weekend, Mom insisted we go back to Michael's town together. My stomach twisted the whole ride there. What if he slammed the door in our faces? What if he never forgave her? What if this destroyed whatever fragile piece of us was left? We pulled up to a neat little house with a red mailbox. Mom's hands gripped the steering wheel so tight her knuckles turned white. I don't think I can do this, she whispered. You can, I said, though my own voice trembled. We both can. We walked up the driveway and rang the doorbell. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the door creaked open. Michael stood there, his expression hardening the second he saw me. I told you to stay away. But then his eyes shifted to my mom. And everything froze. He stared at her like he was looking at a ghost. She stared back, tears already streaming down her face. Michael, she whispered, her voice breaking. It's me. He didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stood there, his chest rising and falling like he couldn't catch his breath. Finally, he muttered. No. No. This isn't real. It's real, Mom said, stepping forward. I'm your mother. I never stopped loving you. They made me give you up, but I never forgot you. Not once. Not a single day. Michael's jaw clenched. He shook his head, backing up. My mom is inside. She raised me. She's the one who's always been there. You don't get to just show up now. I know, Mom said, her voice trembling. And I don't want to take her place. I could never take away what she gave you. But I needed you to know the truth. I needed you to know I exist, and that I love you, even if you hate me. The silence stretched painfully. My heart pounded so loud, I thought I might collapse myself. Then Michael's adoptive mom appeared behind him. She looked at my mom, her eyes wide with shock, then softened with something else, recognition. You're her, she whispered. The birth mother. Mom nodded, her face streaked with tears. Yes. And I'm so sorry. For a long, agonizing moment, no one spoke. Then Michael's adoptive mom put a gentle hand on his shoulder. You deserve to know where you came from, Michael. That doesn't change what we are. But it doesn't erase her either. He looked between us, his face torn with confusion, anger, and something deeper, something raw. Finally, his eyes locked on mine. You're my sister? He asked, his voice hoarse. I nodded, my own tears spilling over. Yeah, I am. And I don't care if you hate me. I just wanted you to know you're not alone. The tension broke like a dam. Michael dropped his head into his hands, his shoulders shaking. His adoptive mom pulled him close, whispering soothing words. And slowly, hesitantly, he looked back up at us. I don't know if I can forgive you, he said to my mom. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I believe you. Mom sobbed, her knees buckling. I caught her before she fell. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't about instant forgiveness. It wasn't about magically fixing years of pain. It was about opening the door. That night, as we drove home, the silence between us wasn't empty anymore. It was heavy, yes, but also full of possibility. I glanced at Mom, her eyes swollen from crying, and for the first time, I didn't just see strength. I saw humanity. Flaws. Regrets. Love so fierce it almost destroyed her. My whole life, I whispered, I thought you were the strongest woman in the world. But now I know. You're just human. And that makes you stronger than I ever realized. She reached for my hand, squeezing it. I don't know what happens next, she said softly. Me neither, I admitted. But at least now, we're not living in lies anymore. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, our broken family wasn't beyond repair.